Evolution of printed circuit board. The commercial use of PCB is only since the 1950s, even though their concept originated nearly 50 years prior to their commercial use. Mr. Sprague, the founder of Sprague Electric, had the idea in 1904 of eliminating point-to-point wiring. While still an apprentice, has the idea in 1904 when he conferred with his mentor Thomas Edison for implementing his concept. It was suggested that silver reduction, as used in mirror manufacturing or the printing of graphite paste on linen paper, may prove to be suitable to achieve the objective. Subsequently, a number of pioneer efforts were made for the development of printed circuit board, out of which the following event occupy place of eminence. This one is point-to-point wiring. You can see here the components are totally linked with each other. This is one component, so this one is pointed connected to this, and this one is another component. This one is connected to this one. So you can say if I have one resistor over here and this one is another resistor over here, so when I connect it to a wire connection, so this means it is an point to point connection. This is a wire. So in the same way, Mr. Sprague had decided to remove the point to point wiring. Next we are going to see the timeline, how the PCB evaluated yearly by yearly or decades by decades. So the first significant contribution come from Charles Dukas, who filed a patent application at the US Patent Office on March 2nd, 1925 for his proposal to mount electrical metal deposit in the shape of conductor directly onto the insulation material to simplify the construction of electrical appliances. Material should almost anything from bakelite and masonite to plain old things pieces of wood. It was often used in radios and gramophones at the time. In the 19 days later, Mr. Francis T. Harman filed a petition for the so-called subtractive method of making PCB. This development could be considered as the forerunner of etching technology. In April 1926, a patent was granted to Mr. Cesare Pasolini in France for his invention of the additive way of making electrical connections. In the 1947 year onwards, first double-sided PCB with plated through holes produced. The major contribution towards the development of modern printed PCB technology was made by Dr. Paul Isler, who proposed copper-clad insulation material in the sheet form for use as the base material in the printed circuit manufacturing. In 1956, the wiring could be printed on one side and the electrical component could be on the other side. One of the biggest steps forward come when the US Patent Office grant a patent to a small group of scientists representing the US Army for the process of assembling electrical circuits. During the 1953 to 1955, Motorola introduced the copper metal plating process to provide interconnection between two sides of a board, which are found to be more suitable for the mass manufacturing process. The IPC, the Institute of Printed Circuit, formed and held first meeting in Chicago. In the 1960s, the electronic method was introduced using catalyst activators, while photo circuits. USA developed the fully additive process in 1964, multi-layer 4 plus layer count PCB design production. In this method, the base material does not have copper on it, and the copper is plated selectively on the required places for interconnection. In the late 60s, witnessed phenomenal growth in the field of consumer electronics, which necessitated the introduction of automation in fabrication. Boards were designed using 4:1 red and blue line vellum method for hand taping components and tracks. A precision camera then produced the 1:1 negative manufacturing film. An experienced designer could lay out and tape a board at the equivalent 14-pin IC on the board. In the 1970s starting, the circuit and the overall size of the board were starting to get a lot smaller by the 70s, and a hot air soldering method begins to be used. Gerber scientists introduced RS-274D as a machine-based format for vector photo plotter. In the 1980s, surface mount parts became the preferred options over through-holes components, which led to further size reduction while maintaining the same level of functionality. RS-274X released as an enhancement to the RS-274D data format. New versions support embedded aperture information, relieving the need for external aperture definition files. Velar Component System founded in introducing Genesis 2000 software for PCB CAM and DFM. US PCB production reaches $7.1 billion, topping $7 billion for first time. Use of micro-wire technology in PCB production starts, ushering in the era of HDI, High Density Interconnect PCB. Velar Component System release ODB++ printed circuit board manufacturing data format into public domain. US PCB fabrication market peaks at the more than $10 billion. PCB real estate become even tighter with 6.5 mil trays and space becoming commonplace. High-tech shop fabrication boards with 3.5 to 4.5 mil trays and space in production quantities. Flex and rigid flex PCBs become an affordable option and widely used. In 2010, every layer interconnect production began.